Hey everybody, Sharon here from VidGamiac.com. Here we are today back in the crew going for the Data Tracker achievement. This is to locate all 30 of the data stations. This is going to be another collectible. The data stations are going to take the form of satellite dishes that you need to drive up to. Once you drive up to one, they're basically going to act like your normal open world video game hotspot finder. So the first one's going to be given to you as a freebie as part of the tutorial. It's going to be right here, right before you get into Detroit, so can't miss this one. Next one up is going to be in Chicago, which is going to be the second major city you visit. This one's going to be right across the street from the airport. It's going to be in this shipping yard right here. So make sure you head on inside. You're going to want to start out on the road right here on the south side. That should allow you to drive up this path right here. And then just make sure you jump this ramp, which should take you into the yard. And you should be able to notice it. Thankfully, the satellite dishes are going to be quite large, so you should be able to spot them from pretty far away. So staying in the Midwest, we're going to leave Chicago, heading west. We're going to go past the Dakotas into the Black Hills. You want to make sure you go right here to the middle of this location. You're going to zoom in all the way until you find this building right here. This is going to be the dead giveaway on where the satellite dish is going to be. From the road, you're going to need to go off-roading for a bit, so you're going to have a bit of a trip uphill. Try your best to back up and get your boost on. Of course, if you're having trouble driving uphill, you can also use the fast travel hop strategy. But nonetheless, just make sure you power your way up here, and then make sure you locate the building. Once you notice that building, that's going to be where the satellite dish is going to be. So once you finally notice the barn in the middle of nowhere atop the hill, just look behind it for the satellite dish, and the next collectible should be yours. Next one up is going to be south of Chicago. It's going to be right next to the power plant. It's going to be just outside of the Little Eagle Speedrome where we got the IndyCar Racer achievement. You're going to want to be driving in this direction. You are going to notice a cylindrical tower off to the side of the road. Once you notice that, the satellite dish is going to be directly behind it atop this hill. So just make sure you pull over and then make sure you drive uphill and then head on over to where the dish is. And this is going to be our fourth one, so make sure you grab it. Next one up is going to put us back up into the hills. We're going to go over to Pikes Peak. Thankfully, this one's going to be near the road. So just make sure you follow the roadway up. This is going to be an area that has a ton of other satellite dishes. These are not going to be the ones that are related to the achievement. Instead, we're going to look for the smaller one. So make sure you keep driving up the mountain road. Make sure you ignore all of the giant satellite dishes, and eventually you're going to come to this building right here. Once you notice that building, there should be a small satellite dish behind it, and that's going to be what counts for the achievement. So stick to the road until it bends right here, and then make sure you follow that bend, and then this is going to wrap around. Make sure you head up this hill, and then at the top of it is going to be the one that actually counts for the achievement, so make sure you grab that. Next one up is going to be in the bottom right quadrant of the Central Plains area. It's going to be right in here, right in the middle. It's going to be pretty easy to spot. Just make sure you follow the road, and then you should be able to turn into the grassland area. Make sure you take that across, and it's going to take you into the forest in the middle of this quadrant, and in the middle of the forest is going to be where the satellite dish is going to be. So make sure you set your waypoint, continue down the road. Once you notice the forest off to your side, just make sure you pull off. Make sure you head through the grassland. Once you see the tree line, that's going to be the foresty area. Make sure you look inside the forest, and in the middle of it's going to be the satellite dish, which is going to be the only thing that's not going to be a tree. So pretty easy to spot, thankfully. Drive up to it, and another collectible should be yours. This one's going to be number 6, which should put us a fifth of the way through. Thankfully, the game's going to divide up the collectibles evenly by zone. So there's going to be a total of 5 zones. A total of 30 is going to mean 6 per zone. So we're going to head to the next one, which is going to be the East Coast. We're going to start out all the way up top here, up in Maine, so the furthest point north on the map. Once you get into the Maine Highlands, you're going to notice a bunch of lakes. You're going to want to drive up towards the uppermost one. So as you are driving down this road, you're going to notice this trailer with a water tower next to it. Once you notice that, it's going to be the signal to turn off-road and then head through the forest. You're going to keep driving up north. You're going to find a clearing in the trees right before you touch the water. And once you get to that clearing, you should be able to notice the satellite dish because once again, it's going to be the only thing in the forest that's going to not be a tree. So once you notice that, just make sure you drive up to it and then grab your collectible, which is going to put us at 7 out of 30 overall, and it's going to kick off our East Coast adventure. So that's going to be the first one of the East Coast zone. We're going to follow the coast down until we get to Cape Cod. This is going to be on the upper hook of Cape Cod right here where the town is going to be. This is going to be Provincetown. You're going to want to head right here to the upper left corner of town. You should have these two buildings right next to the lighthouse. So once you get past this tree line right here, you're going to notice this fenced off area. Make sure you crash through the chain link fence. You're going to have some warehouses right here, but behind those in this open lot is going to be the satellite dish. Next one up is going to take us to upstate New York. This one's going to be right above this body of water. So make sure you head on over to this. It's going to jut out into this lake just on the other side of West Point. We're going to start out way over here on the road, and we're going to need to drive through a ton of forest. So same as before, just make sure you keep driving, and you should be able to grab it on your way before you hit the water. Once again, really hard to miss because the satellite dish is going to stand out in an area that's nothing but trees, but thankfully this one is going to be on the shoreline. So if you hit the water before you can find it, just make sure you follow the shore and you should be able to see it eventually. And once you do, just make sure you drive up to it, and that's going to put us at 9 out of 30. And that's also going to be half of the East Coast ones. So once we finally find it after this long drive through the woods, we should be able to pocket another one. Next destination up is going to be right here, smack dab in the middle of New York City on Rikers Island. You're going to head over to the bottom side right here. You're going to want to drive up. You're going to cut through this park, and there should be a retaining wall right before the highway. You want to make sure you drive up to the retaining wall. Right behind it is going to be the satellite dish. You should be able to grab it from this side of the wall. This one is going to be number 10 overall, which should put us a third of the way to getting all of them, as well as the achievement. So make sure you grab this one, and we will be done with the city. Next one up is going to be over at the pit mines in the Pennsylvania area. You are going to want to head over to the middle part of it. It's going to be pretty windy, so make sure you try to navigate this the best you can. If you zoom in all the way, the best landmark is to follow this metal structure right here. That's going to be a straight vertical line with a slight bend at the top. Make sure you head over there. As you are driving up the mine road, you're going to be able to notice this thing right here, right at the end of the metal structure. So make sure you drive up to it. You can also take this ramp if you want a little bit of a shortcut, or if you're smart, you can fast travel hop, but you're going to get to the precipice of this part right here, and on the edge of this cliff face is going to be the satellite dish. Last one for the East Coast is going to be just outside of Washington, D.C. You're going to want to take the southern entrance in, and then right as you get to the city limits right here, where the building line is going to meet the tree line, you're going to notice it right here behind this set of skyscrapers. So just make sure you turn off-road just as you are getting into the city, and then just follow the border all the way until you can find the satellite dish right here. This one's going to be pretty easy to spot using the map, thankfully. So once we finally pocket this one, we should be at 12 out of 30, and we should be done with the East Coast, so we can move down south. So first one in the south is going to be right here in Miami. We're going to head right to the middle of town. You're going to notice there's going to be some train tracks right here. You want to make sure you follow these along, and just before you hit the elevated tracks, you should be able to turn off into this small lot right here. Where the corner is going to be where the satellite dish is going to be found, so make sure you look for it there. So once again, driving down the road, once you see the tracks, just make sure you get on it. Don't worry about any trains hitting you or anything, and just make sure you take this until you get your grand prize right as the track bends. We're going to go up the coast. Right over here is going to be Daytona Beach. You're going to want to be on the shore side of Daytona, and you're going to be right here in the upper right of town. You're going to go between these two houses right here, and this is going to take you to the back side. Once you get into these people's backyards, you should be able to find the satellite dish right over here between the trees, and then once you have this, you should be one closer to the achievement. Right over here in the middle of the state is going to be the space industries area. You want to make sure you're on this side of the river. So once you get past the bridge, we're going to go south, follow the coastline, and then right here in the middle of this kind of foresty area is going to be your collectible. So once you notice the giant cylindrical tower, that's going to be your cue to turn. Again, this is all right after the bridge, and then we're just going to follow this along through the forest on our way to the next satellite dish. And can't stress enough, satellite dishes are super duper easy to notice among areas that have a ton of trees. So once you see that thing, drive up to it, and that's going to be the halfway point of the southern states. So a quick hop across the Gulf is going to take us over to New Orleans. There's going to be a little town just outside right here called Bridge City. You're going to want to head to the north part of town, and then we're going to turn right here, right before the giant electrical tower. So head through this forest right here, and then smack dab in the middle of this is going to be your next satellite dish. So again, another journey through some trees until we see the one thing that isn't going to be a tree, and then drive up to it, and then get our next collectible out of the way. So right here, and that's one more down. So over to Texas next. This one's going to be just north of Dallas. You should notice this intersection right here before you get to the Great Plains area. If you zoom in further, you should be able to see there's going to be an oil refinery right here. The next collectible is going to be in the oil refinery. So you should be able to get to the intersection. Make sure you turn into where the pumps are going to be. You're going to need to crash into some fences, but the satellite dish is going to be behind said fences next to some oil pumps. It is going to blend in pretty well in the background, so make sure you keep an eye out for it. But once you do drive up to it, you should be able to grab the collectible. So just make sure you get close enough, and you should be good for it. So last one of the southern states is going to be the hardest one to find. It's going to be right out here in Hill Country. So you're going to be driving down this main road right here, then you're going to pull off into this foresty area. There's going to be a few different clearings. You're going to need to try each of them until you find the one that has the satellite dish in it. So just make sure you're a little persistent with this one as you are cutting through the trees right here. But same deal as last time, just look for the one thing that isn't going to be a tree, and that should be a dead giveaway on where the satellite dish is going to be. So just keep looking at all of the clearings, all the dead zones where there aren't going to be any trees, and eventually you should be able to stumble across it. And once you do, that's going to wrap it up for all of the southern states, which is going to allow us to finally head west. So our adventure is finally going to bring us over here to the mountain states, which is going to be the biggest of all of these zones. We're going to start out right here up top in the snowy area. There's going to be this little town right here called Jackson, just south of the Jackson Hole Valley. You're going to want to be in the bottom left corner of town, and then right here behind the buildings, just before you get to the big cliff face right here, should be your satellite dish. This one's pretty easy to find once you get into town, so just make sure you look for it. So once you get to this corner of town, you should notice all these houses right here. Make sure you break into these people's backyards, and then once you notice the giant satellite dish, just head on over to it, and that should kick off our mountain adventure. So once you get sick of the snow, it's time to head on over here to the canyon lands. You want to make sure you head right to this specific ridge right here. So look for this giant clearing, hard to miss if you're using your mini map. You're going to have a pretty long drive to get here, and then once you get here, you're going to have a pretty long drive to get up to where the collectible is going to be. Right before the guardrail starts, right where you see all of these yellow signs with the arrows, we're going to head on down here and go off-roading a bit. It's going to be a pretty bumpy ride. I'm going to recommend that you fast travel hop if you do get stuck, but just make sure you follow this along, and then this is going to wrap all the way around until you start to dip into the canyon right here. So just make sure you take your time, be a little careful with this. Once you take this big spill right here, you're going to tumble all the way down. Once you get to the bottom of the valley, you're going to need a big push to get up the opposite wall, so make sure you try your best to wedge up. However, if you can't do this, which you probably can't since driving uphill is really difficult, I am going to recommend that you just fast travel hop. Make sure you get all the way to the top of the hill. You should be close enough to manage it. And then once you are here, it should be a smooth ride to where the satellite dish is going to be at the end of this cliff right here. So just make sure you punch it straight, and you should be able to find it right here, overlooking the rest of the canyon. Very nice scenery, but very difficult to drive to manually, but that's why fast travel hopping exists. So do take advantage of that if you are having trouble climbing uphill. So just make sure you get to the end of this cliff right here, and the satellite dish is going to be right over here, overlooking all of the canyons. Next one up is going to also be another one that's going to be a pretty long drive too. So this one's going to be right here in Monument Valley. The road is going to be all the way down here. We're going to have to cut across this big stretch of nothing until we get to the actual mountains. So just make sure you drive through this the best you can. Try not to get too bored along the way. Once you are here, you should notice there's going to be a gap in the mountains that you can take, so make sure you take that up. Again, I am going to recommend that you just fast travel hop, since that's going to save you a bunch of driving, and driving uphill is not going to be fun whatsoever. So whatever you do decide to do, whether that be trudge uphill or actually be smart and just fast travel hop, once you get to the top of this thing, it should flatten out a bit, allowing you to just drive straight to it. And of course, it is going to be another one at the edge of a cliff overlooking all of the nice scenery in the middle of nowhere. So just drive up to it and then admire your long effort to get here. Next one up, hopefully you aren't tired of mountain climbing quite just yet. This one's going to be in the northern part of the Grand Canyon. You're going to be driving through this very mountainous road right here. You should notice this very sharp turn right here. Once you notice this sharp turn, that's going to be your cue to start mountain climbing. Or once again, I am going to recommend that you try to be smart and just use your fast travel hop in order to skip past all of the vertical driving bits. So right over here is where the road is going to take that sharp turn. This is going to be the gap in the mountain that you are supposed to drive up. Again, make sure you are smart and just fast travel a hop, because driving up this thing is very difficult. So just make sure you fast travel hop all the way up here to where things get nice and flat, and then you should be able to continue your journey. So drive across this little area, and then eventually you're going to need to get to another climbing part, which again, I'm going to recommend that you try to be smart and just fast travel hop. So just make sure you follow these rolling hills right here. You're going to take a big spill right here. Be very careful. Stick the landing, and then you can just fast travel hop all the way over here to where things get nice and flat again. And we could just follow the top of the cliff until we get to the edge, where the next collectible is going to be in a nice thematic fashion to coincide with the previous ones. So just make sure you get it, and of course enjoy the nice scenery, and hopefully you don't get vertigo from being up too high. So moving on, this one's going to be right here next to the border with the West Coast states. Just south of Mojave, you're going to have this little stretch of desert right here. This one's going to be very easy to find, since desert is going to be nice and flat compared to mountains, obviously. So just make sure you drive on through, and you should be able to see this thing from super duper far away. Also, the desert being flat is going to mean we're going to have a super duper easy drive to get to it, unlike the previous few ones. So drive up to it, and then make sure you pocket this one. Alright, finally the last one for the mountain states is going to be right here, just outside of Las Vegas. We're going to be coming in from this side. You're going to have these foothills right outside of Vegas. Make sure you go up to the base of them, and you will find your collectible right over here. So thankfully, no mountain climbing to grab this one. Just make sure you pull off as soon as you notice the Vegas skyline right here in the background. We're just going to punch it across this small stretch of desert into the foothills, and then we're going to find our satellite dish right over here, resting just before things start to climb. So you should be able to notice this one from far away too, since we are going to be in the desert. So make sure you grab this one, and that should wrap up the Mountain States zone, leaving us with one more, which is going to be the West Coast. So on to that we go. So here we are, finally, last zone in the form of the West Coast. We're going to start out up north in the Pacific Northwest in the Seattle area. We're going to be right over here. This is going to be the upper right side of Seattle. You're going to have this big complex in the upper right part of town. Very hard to miss. Make sure you take this road up, and then once you are able to turn into the complex, we're going to head over there. Inside is going to be our satellite dish, thankfully super duper easy to find. After all that mountain climbing, it's going to be pretty refreshing to get these city-based ones. Anyways, this little complex is going to be a rail yard. You're going to have the main rail right here. Follow this up until you get to the platform, and then right over here is going to be the satellite dish. Once we grab that one, it's going to be down south. We're going to go to Tahoe. This one's going to be just south of Lake Tahoe right here. This is going to be a very mountainous one, despite the trail looking so short. So you have this really windy trail right here, and then you're going to have this very steep mountain climb. Again, I'm going to highly recommend that you fast travel hop for this one, since not only is it going to be super steep, it's also going to be filled with trees. So we're going to trudge our way up if we want to, or once again, highly recommend just being smart and just fast travel hopping all the way to the top of this mountain right here. The satellite dish is going to be right here, just as the mountain is going to start getting snowy. It's also going to be the steepest part of the climb, so make sure you are very careful. Hopefully you can get some traction under your tires, but once you are able to start heading up this thing, the satellite dish is going to be right here, hidden behind these trees right here. So just make sure you try to trudge forward, and hopefully you can get close enough to it in order to get it to count. Next one up is going to be over here in San Francisco. This one's going to be in the Presidio area, just before the Golden Gate Bridge. So make sure you look for it. It's going to be right here in the middle of the park. Super duper easy to grab just off of the road. So make sure you take this path down. You're going to have some rocks here, but you should be able to turn into the park right over here. And then make sure you head on inside and then find the next satellite dish. So just trudge your way up, and then once you see this rock face, just make sure you get to the top of it, and your dish is going to be right here. All right, over here is going to be King Canyon. We're going to have this mountain right here. It's going to be very close to the road, thankfully. Unfortunately, it's going to be a bit of a climb. It's going to be another one where it's going to be found just as the snow starts. So I am going to recommend that you fast travel hop for this one. As you can see, once you actually start the climb, it's going to be quite steep, and it's going to be full of trees. So try your best to trudge uphill, but once again, fast travel hopping is always going to be the best course of action for these more vertical collectibles. So try your best to get up there. You can see the satellite dish all the way from the bottom, thankfully, so make sure you just use that as a guide. But once again, fast travel hop saves you all the time in the world, and we can just punch it straight there. As you can see, once you do get to the top, it's still going to be very steep, so try to be precise in your fast travel hop, and you should be able to just nudge all the way over there and grab your collectible. So with that one out of the way, thankfully we should be done with both snow and mountains. We're going to head over here to Los Angeles, go to the upper left of town right before you get to Malibu. You're going to want to take this little ramp right here, and you should notice there's going to be two rocks right here. In between the two rocks is going to be this valley. In said valley is going to be the next satellite dish, so make sure you drive down into the valley, grab it, and that's going to actually be our penultimate one. So this is going to be 29 of 30. We have one more to go after this, which thankfully is going to be another pretty easy one to get. So grab this one and then on to the last. So with that one out of the way, we're going to head to the opposite side of Los Angeles area. Right over here, just outside of Palm Springs, is going to be these rolling hills right here. Make sure you take this path, and then once you actually get to the hilly area, we're going to turn off the road, and then we're just going to cruise on nicely over. This is going to be another one that's going to be pretty easy to spot from the road. So once you notice it, just drive up to it, and that should be all 30 satellite dishes found. Once you scan this one in, you should complete that and be good for the achievement. So there's our last cutscene. Achievement should unlock shortly thereafter. 25 gamer score for this one. And that's all there is to it.